Everyone seems to talk about the teachings of spiritual teachers when they talk about manifesting. And though I love that, and you guys know how much I love Neville Goddard, at the core, one of the things that was really interesting to me getting into manifesting was the science behind manifesting. And so I decided to go back to school for my master's and my doctorates so that I can teach manifesting from a scientific space and not just a spiritual woo-woo place. Not that anything is wrong with that, but science is finally catching up to the spiritual world, to manifesting, and we now have tangible evidence for how this entire thing works. So today I am going to share with you an interview style podcast that I was on that is basically a masterclass on manifesting. I came from the way of subconscious reprogramming, because really how we manifest has everything to do with our subconscious and our belief systems. And so I want to walk you through today how to reprogram your subconscious mind to manifest anything it is that you desire in this world. So grab your notebook, grab your pen, or whatever you use to take notes. It really is a masterclass. Be sure to leave me down in the comments any thoughts from the interview. I cannot wait to hear from you. All right, I want to share with you real quick what we're covering because it is kind of long and I want you to know what you're in for. Number one, you're going to find out why so many people actually struggle with manifesting. If you have struggled with manifesting, I can tell you right now that it always leads back to the subconscious belief system. And I'm going to dig into that, how the subconscious belief system was created and how to switch it. It's why people do struggle with the Neville Goddard technique, the seeing it into belief, the feeling it into belief, because if there is a subconscious blockage there, then unfortunately not going to work for you. It's why so many people can listen to my manifestation stories and it does not move the needle for them and they don't believe it because it's based on their belief systems and their veil. And so we're digging into all that. And that's really important if you are looking to move to a space where you are creating with ease and manifesting with ease, whether it's the love of your life, whether it's a home, whether it's money, whether it's a new position, whether it's a company, whether it's subscribers on YouTube. These are very important things to dig into because without knowing this, you will just be on a hamster wheel all the time. I'm going to share that with you. I'm going to give you tangible tips that you can take right now to start implementing to move the needle on your programming so that you can start manifesting now. Like, we got to get this switched up. And I think this is going to be very important moving into the new year so that you can stop watching videos in desperation. And when you come here, you're coming to learn new insights and new tips, but not in desperation. So hopefully at the end of this video, you will have so many aha moments. You're going to come back and be like, holy crap, Stephanie, I wish I knew this a long time ago. That's okay. You're going to know it now. Now I'm going to hush and now we're going to get into it.
Stephanie Sinclair, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy you are here.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
We, a little behind the scenes for you who are listening, we were chatting. We've been chatting for about 10 minutes. And more than once, I said, we have to stop. I have a follow-up question and I am saving it for the recording. So we didn't do anything. We didn't talk too juicy until we hit the recording. Stephanie, let's dive in. You are a multi-passionate entrepreneur. You got a few things shaking. I mean, before we start diving into the heart of this episode, you got to tell us what all you have going on because it's good.
Wait, here's this all over the place that I just said.
I love it.
So I guess I'll start with like the oldest thing, which is coaching and consulting, which is my bread and butter. That's actually what I love. I started off as a business and marketing coach, which I'm kind of obsessed with businesses. Watching business grow is like, I mean, it's a little nerdy, but I love watching businesses grow. And like, how did you get to $100 million? Like, how did we do this? Right. Yeah. So exciting. So that's where I started. But one of the things I noticed with the women, and I don't exclusively work with women, but for some reason, women really like gravitate towards me. I don't know. So I'm mostly 99% it's women. The women that I work with, I notice you can give all the tools, you can like lay everything out, and there's still something that stops them from getting to that next level of success. And back in 2012, 2013, I really wanted to start digging into that. So I started focusing more on what I like to call like surface level mindset, the cute stuff. And I mean, people would be annoyed to hear me say that, but I think it's cute. Like, oh, you know, doing our affirmations, which I love affirmations, but not really understanding how to use them is a problem. And so I started digging into that first, right? And then I realized this actually needs to go deeper than surface. And I went back to school to be a neurophysicist and metaphysicist and focus on the brain, the way the brain works, the way the subconscious works, which got me here now, which is focusing on subconscious reprogramming around wealth for women, even though it works for everything, but I focus on money because
oh my God.
I feel like money is such a polarizing topic, and my personality, like, I think I'm the only person that likes when people think I'm an asshole. I really do. And money's so polarizing. It makes people, you're either going to lean in or you're going to be like, I really dislike her. She's talking about this taboo thing, you know, that we shouldn't talk about, and run away. And I like to confront people with those hard things, because if I am talking about money, I'm directly pushing up against your beliefs around money and what we should or shouldn't be talking about as far as women are concerned. So that's on the coaching and consulting side. That took way too long to tell.
Oh,
whatever.
I love it.
But also in October of last year, so we just celebrated a year. I quietly celebrated a year for LaRue 1680, which is a luxury loose leaf tea company, which if you just Google it, like, knock on wood, I feel so amazingly blessed that in less than a year, like, we have been featured in Oprah, The Today Show, Good Morning America, Drew Barrymore, Vogue, Southern Living. We actually have a film crew coming this Friday to do a day in the life of, which it was supposed to be just a Zoom interview. And they're like, so we want to fly in from DC and do like a full day. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I feel so blessed for what was like a fluke, but it wasn't a fluke because I really work on the programming. I really work on all those things. So of course it was going to blow up. I didn't know how it was going to blow up, but I knew that LaRue would highly be talked about. And so like 7 months in, we had almost $3 million valuation 7 months in. And the goal is to grow it to 100 million plus company and sell it. I never lie. You know, people are like, what's your goal? They're like, oh, I want to grow it to be in my family. No, I want to grow it to sell it.
Yeah. And then anything can happen after that. You build to sell, and you're like, oh, I'm now family wants it. Okay. Like, you can roll with whatever, but build to sell, because that's a well-designed business.
Exactly. And I'm just really excited about that, because I think over on the coaching and consulting side, most times we are not looking at our companies in that particular way. And for me, you did not ask me this, but let me just dive in.
I love it.
One of the things that made me decide to do, not necessarily tea, but another company, was I really started digging into, okay, the more my subconscious and wealth programming grows, the more expansive it gets, the question starts to begin, well, where does real wealth come from? So I went down a rabbit hole of like the wealthiest individuals. Where did their money come from if it was not from family? If it was from family, where did their family get it from? Those things are important. And of course, you have like the tech investors, you have real estate investors. But one of the number one things that I saw from all the companies where they built something sellable and they either sold or they grew big enough that now it's still that big a conglomerate, like they really can sell for billions if they want to. And I realized that's where this lump sum of wealth comes from. And it was triggered, I'm embarrassed to say, it was triggered by watching $1 Million Listings New York.
I love it.
And I was thinking, even my house I live in Georgia, if this was in New York, I don't know that I could buy this house. Like, I don't know what's happening. And then I start thinking, well, where is everybody getting 16 million and 20 million? Like, cash where are you finding this? You did not save this, because if you did, you would not quickly drop it on a house. Like, you can tell it's like a small piece of a pie. And and it's several cash buyers, but those are the things that kind of took me down that route. And I was like, oh, so I need something scalable and sellable. What does that look like? And when I started looking at my current business model, I didn't quite see that as being, I mean, when we're talking about a neurophysicist, that means for it to be sellable, it needs to go to a specific type of person with specific training. And it just doesn't fit, you know? So that's how we even got to LaRue. And yeah.
Okay, so we got a couple of things to dig into here. The subconscious reprogramming, and then I'm going to circle back to LaRue, because I am a big fan and I love the way that you're talking about structuring. Like, this is my end destination. I know I want to build $100 million sellable company. Okay. Actually, I got questions. I'm going to put a pin in that, but I'm going to come back over to the subconscious reprogramming that you talked about. What is this? What's our subconscious doing for us, and why do we need to reprogram it?
Yeah. So there may be areas of your subconscious you don't need to reprogram. So let's say that, right? I believe in we all have growth, period, but we do tend to have areas that are easier for us that maybe didn't get screwed up. However, so let me first, before I kind of go into that, let's just talk about what the subconscious is first, because I think if we really understand that, that'll make the rest of it a little bit easier. So the things that we consciously think, or even unconsciously think, like when you're driving in your car or taking a shower and you're like, I don't know where that thought came from, whether it's joy or whether it's fear, whether it's of love, whether it's of hate, whatever, whether it's of lack or abundance, whatever those thoughts come from, and we're like, oh, I don't know where that came from, it directly comes from your subconscious. So your subconscious is where your deeply held beliefs and truths are kept. Those are the things that influence the rest of our lives. And this is the thing that tends to shock people, is your subconscious beliefs are not even always, how do I say this? They're not really yours always. Sometimes they are, but many times they're not. So they come from three different places. The first place is epigenetics. And so we hear epigenetics often talked about as far as what's held in our cellular DNA, as far as cancers and illnesses and diabetes, but this also goes for programming as well. So scientists have done many, many studies where they have shown people who are descendants of survivors of like the Holocaust or something that's extremely traumatic, to descendants who were not here during the Holocaust. They did not experience it. And when hooking them up, what they notice is their brain waves clocked the visual cues and the sounds that they heard as memories. This is important, right? Because that's nothing that we're experiencing. So if you are coming from a family who has specific traumas around anything, they're going to affect you. And you may not know why. So I always tell people way before I know about this information, I have a thing about domestic violence. I cannot take men. I don't care if it's like a stranger and I see a man pushing or hitting a woman, it triggers me in such a visceral way. Like I want to jump in because this is a no. And I get so upset, and I never really understood why. And I still haven't tracked it down to exactly where, but I do know somewhere down the line that has been a thing within my lineage. And because I've never had an issue personally with that. So why is it that it feels so visceral for me and personal, whereas there may be other things that you want to help, you don't think is right, but it doesn't quite land in the same way, because there's something subconsciously that makes me feel as if this has happened to me, because it is a part of epigenetics. So all that said, with epigenetics, we'll stick to the money part because that's like my focus, but again, it goes for everything. If there are any belief systems or traumas from epigenetics that does not support the way you want to live today, there is a mismatch in energy there. There's a mismatch in belief. The deep-seated belief, the deeply held belief is I can't, because this has been my experience. But your conscious mind and looking around, you can consciously know what's available for you. And so that's why it's a lot of people who are consciously like, I want this, but for some reason, we talk about resistance, but we don't even talk about that, because resistance often comes from the subconscious. So then we're hit with resistance, and we don't recognize that, yeah, we're resistant because we need to first create a new belief. It's why we spend so much time as entrepreneurs focusing on the non-revenue generating activities. We feel busy. We feel like we're working towards the thing, and yet why aren't we making any money, right? So that's one way, is the epigenetics. The second way is 7 months gestation to 7 years old. So this is when I talk to clients who may have been, say, adopted. They don't even know their birth parent. They get really tense around this. And I understand how you feel. And also, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you say, I don't know my mother. You were in your mother's womb, and therefore her feelings, emotions, and experiences pass to you. At that point, at 7 months gestation, your brain is developed and it is recording everything. 7 months to 7 years, you don't really understand why things are happening. As an adult, as a whole adult, right? That's emotionally whole. We tend to be able to look at situations and say, okay, this has happened, but that's not necessarily the truth of the way this should be. Children are not able to do that. They don't have the capacity. And so their subconscious registers those things as that's the way it is. It's why often you see people who are products of families with domestic violence. They know it's wrong. They know how they felt, and yet somehow they end up in those situations later, because subconsciously it has literally, I guess we'll say, imprinted. And so as much as you don't want that, as much as you're pulling away from it, is the truth of what life is. And even in that, I like to say people find comfort in their discomfort. You're not consciously saying this is comfortable because you're very uncomfortable. But when you try to move out the situation, that is so uncomfortable for you. You'd rather create situations unconsciously to put you back in this situation that's uncomfortable, but you're comfortable in the uncomfortability. I hope that makes sense, right?
It totally makes sense.
So that's number 2. And then number 3 is after 7, all those experiences that back up the epigenetics and the before 7, you'll start noticing other things now in your life that back those beliefs up. And then your environment is huge at this time. So who you're around, neighborhoods you live in, the things you listen to, the things you watch. If there is a repetitiveness of that, the longer you're hearing it, the longer you're watching it, the longer you're experiencing it, it then begins to imprint into the subconscious as well. So that's what the subconscious is. And so if you have those things there, the subconscious then is what triggers your thoughts, all based on subconscious. Subconscious is triggering all those thoughts. I like to call it in the dark. In the dark is where the seed tends to start germinating in the dark. And in the dark is, even though the light is on, what I'm thinking about but not verbalizing is actually my subconscious. What I'm verbalizing tends to be what we're consciously wanting to think and we're consciously wanting to pay attention to. But that thought that pops up like, oh, this is silly, that's your subconscious, right? And it's just showing itself and it's germinating, it's growing in the dark of those thoughts, what you're thinking before bed, when you think when you wake up, what you think when you're driving. Like I'm big on, if I'm driving long distance, I have like whole thought movies going on in my brain. Like it's quiet if I don't have like a podcast or something on, which is why I now listen to podcasts or audio books in the car. I tend not to I'm very conscious about my mind now. I don't let my mind wander, because if you let it wander, then very often it goes into other spaces, and we know what we consistently think about over a period of time. Our dominant force, our dominant thought process is what we're then creating more of. So then that means that programming is even more deeply rooted. So to avoid that, I don't let my brain wander too much. If I find myself thinking I don't have anything to do, which is not often as an entrepreneur, I'm going to find an audiobook or a podcast to turn on.
So good.
You did
Stephanie,
not expect that to be like a 10-minute answer. I know.
that was phenomenal. That is phenomenal. And I was taking notes as well. This is why I was looking down. Okay, got to capture that, got to follow this, and have to take some of this in, and bringing it sort of full circle, what you said there about the dominant process, right? We've got to get intentional around what we are putting in to our subconscious. Is this part of the reprogramming process?
Yep. I would definitely say, I don't think, how do I want to say this? I don't think reprogramming is a hard thing to do. I just don't think it's easy, which is like weird to say, because the techniques and tactics are not difficult. I mean, there are so many different tactics that we use. The consistency, because there's only so much I can do for you. You have to do that. Like, unless I'm with you 24 hours, when you are done talking to me, you have to go off and keep it up, which means when those things show up, you have to be willing to move from that space. That's the hard work.
To move. And that is hard. Because
Yes.
we have a pattern. We are humans. We are creatures of habit.
Yes.
And shifting those habits, we know is hard.
So difficult. And then we get caught up on, like, there's a very little that like burns my gears than someone saying, well, it's the truth. Oh my God. I'm like gonna roll my eyes in the back of my head. Like, is it really? Or is it the truth of what you've been thinking? Because think about it. If you've been thinking it, it has now become your belief system. Yet it's the truth of what you've been thinking. So until you choose to think something new, that is going to continue to be that truth, but it's not the truth. That's just a truth you're choosing. You can see something completely different. You can do that.
That was good. That's a quotable. Is it the truth, or is it that truth? Is it, it's what the truth you've been thinking. So yeah, okay, it's your truth right now, but do we want to shift from that? And we get to choose. And you said that there are a lot of reprogramming techniques that can be used. Like, okay, being intentional about what we are taking in.
Well, and that, yes. So I like to call that like input and output. So like your input has to be predominantly what it is that you're desiring for yourself. So that means that, and when I say predominantly, I don't even mean 55%. Now, let's be clear. If 100% of your time has been spent thinking about the negative things in your life and what you don't have and what's not going right, then yeah, 55% of bringing in now something more positive, you will see a shift, right? But if you want to see a long lasting, what I like to call a real quantum leap, you really have to lend this more to 90%, 85, 90%, which means you really don't allow, like you can't allow your mind to wander. It's why, I don't know if you've ever heard this. Like, I grew up in the South, I grew up in Alabama, and like my mom used to always say, was it my mom? I don't know where I get it from, but I know it's a religious like thing, is what is it? A quiet mind is the devil's work. An idle mind is the devil's workshop.
Yes.
That's what it is. Idle mind. And we always, like, she would always use it in terms of children. If you allow your kids to not have anything to do, you don't keep them busy, they get into things. That's how we tend to kind of process that statement. But I was talking to a client last week about this, and I said, but what if that's not really what that means? Like, I think we misinterpret a lot of things in general. I'm not saying it is, but let's kind of sit with, What if the idle mind is all of those beliefs, fears, worries that do not support what it is that we desire? When we're not consciously putting our mind on something, all those things come up, every last one of them. That's more so. And when I think of the devil, like if we had to put God and Satan, right? We're thinking of high level frequency, lower level frequency, higher level being love and joy and health and abundance, and lower level being fear and lack and worry. So when we start thinking about the devil's workshop, what those negative things is coming in, they fit the devil. So when I start thinking about the idle mind being the devil's workshop, I'm like, yeah, because almost 100% of the people, if you don't consciously put your mind on something, your fears are what tend to showcase themselves. And so that's why my biggest thing of programming, which is the thing you spend the most time doing, is thinking, is making sure your input is of the things you desire, the things you want to talk about, higher level frequency things. It's why I don't watch the news. I can't tell you the last time I watched the news. I mean, I might get the Apple Facebook, like the news thing on your phone when you swipe over, and I'll kind of glance at it, and if something like catch my eye, I'll look at it. That's how you find like the weather reports. That's where I get those things from. And my mom's the news for everybody. She's gonna send it to me if she feel like I'm supposed
love
to
it.
know. But I'm not watching because my input, what comes in, is important. So like I said, I love audiobooks. I love Audible. I'm a big fan of the oldies that I think people are so big on, like new books, and they're great, but it's something about going back to original works that I think will always hold true. So of course I love Wallace D. Wattles. I love Florence Scovel Shinn, of course. Florence Scovel Shinn was like my first introduction before I even knew anything about even business. She was my first introduction on how to change my life and how to shift my circumstances. And I thought it was really great because I was coming directly from a church background and I needed to be eased into this. If you had to put me in it too quickly, it would have been too much of a shock. But she was just enough to use biblical references to make me feel comfortable in like a manifesting space. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
So I'm big on that. I've listened to their books multiple times. The Man, Think and Grow Rich.
Yep.
Napoleon Hill.
Napoleon Hill.
There is a newer book of his that supposedly was written, and in the way it reads, he probably did, right? It supposedly was written by him, and it is you know what I'm talking about.
I
the
do.
Conversation with the Devil.
Yeah, it's on my phone. I'd have to look it up. I have it in my
Yes.
Audible.
We're gonna think about it in a minute, but it's a newer book with the Conversation with the Devil, which is very, very interesting. I love that book as well. I am big on Neville Goddard lectures. I'm very, very big, and he was out probably 50s and 60s, so he would be newer. I like the older core content because when we get to the newer content, it almost for me feels like they read it and then put it in what they think on this version. It's like, you know what, let me go to the original. I want to hear what it said because I like to interpret things from now this space, because science is just now catching up to the faith space. So if you think about it, like people still feel like manifestation is woo-woo, but really physics has caught up to it now. And now this is a very unique time, I think, where science and spirituality kind of blends a little bit, a lot actually, because we understand actually what's happening when we focus on input and output is that what we really are doing is shifting the energy, our internal energy that's going out into the universe. It's why like we really do repel people. If you walk in a room and it's like two people talking and or it's one person who's in a bad mood, you feel it. It's because even from a science standpoint, we radiate energy on different frequencies. And so science has caught up to the fact that if you're focused in enough on something, focused on the positive end, not the negative end, not the not wanting of the thing, but the actual having of it, that it literally creates almost like this vacuum, this vortex that's pulling it into you. And I just love that we're in this time because I love the spirituality side, and the nerd in me is like, oh my God, science is finally getting it, you know?
It's unreal. My husband is trying to, we banter a little bit about the quantum, and he is like trying to understand it and really going into the science of it. Then he reached a part in his book, and this week he shared with me, like, no, okay, there's something here and there's something over there. And you are here thinking about the something over there. So you have changed it simply because you are here, and you can't see it, you can't feel it, but it's there.
Listen, one of my favorite sayings to my clients is, because we have this thing about wanting to see things in the 3D. I get it. Like, we want to see it like, you know, I see my phone. We want to see something, right? But seeing it, you can see it without seeing it in a 3D. You can see it internally, right? Which really does bring it to you. But a really great way, once you start seeing it for yourself and really believing you have it, one of the most important things I tell my clients is, even if you have to repeat to yourself, it's already here, I just can't see it yet. One of my clients, she's a love coach. She uses that with her clients who are looking for their person or waiting for their person. He's here, you just don't see him yet. It's the same way with everything. It's here. And I like to say, if you want to see it, close your eyes and see it. You actually can choose to see it. And really what you're after, even when you get the physical thing, like I talk about this, and I've really been talking about it more. The older I get, the more I recognize that even in like the wealth quest, it was never and has never really been about the things.
Yeah.
It's about the way the feeling, the dopamine rush, the feeling. And so the older I get, the more away from things I get, which is very shocking for a lot of people. I start to embrace more things that really mean something to me on a deeper level, because it's taken me a while to realize, like I walked through my house maybe a month ago and I was like, oh my God, I need to become a minimalist. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You do not need 15 cheese trays. Why do you have 15 cheese trays? Like, this is ridiculous. And so I began to really explore even that, and on a science standpoint, what buying do for you specifically if you didn't come from wealth. And what I realized is the rush that comes from being able to buy and buying things is very similar to the dopamine hit of drugs. And it's why in the beginning, when you start making money, you'll go buy something and you're like so excited about it for a period of time. And then after a while you buy it and like, oh my God, I got it in a 3D. And then you're over it the same day, if not the next day, because literally you're not after the thing, you're after the feeling. You want to feel so good. And so when I really tapped into that, I realized I can create that feeling internally. And so part of the thing for my manifesting really is being with the thing. And so when I say it's already here and you can't see it, honestly, it feels better to have doing it internally. It lasts longer. I promise you, because you get that thing and it's like, great, I did that. Now what's next? Right. But when you're feeling it internally, say you want a new home or a new car and you go there inside first, all of a sudden, like you get to sit in what it feels like for all your dreams to come true. And what you begin to notice is that feeling is the same no matter what it is, whether we're talking about business and clients and money or a house or cars or things or whatever, vacation, whatever it is, the feeling is the same. And what you'll notice is if you can get the feeling down, then all the things that you want come to you, because the universe wants to keep giving you that feeling all the time. You're now programming the feeling into, like, your subconscious thinks the feeling is normal. Your subconscious actually, like I told you, as a kid, it can't determine. As an adult, it actually doesn't know truth from a non-truth. All it knows is the thing that it sees and feels and believes over and over. Oh, and after a while, like in the beginning, it'll push up against it and things may get uncomfortable because your subconscious want to keep you with what's safe, even if it's not what you need. It's what's safe. It's what we know. And after a while, your subconscious will say, oh, okay, this is our new normal. And so it'll start giving you more of that. So when you really catch that the feeling is what you're looking for, and you start spending more time there, your subconscious will say, oh, we're supposed to feel this way, and then give you thoughts that will produce the actions that lead you to continue to have that feeling. Is that confusing? Or
oh my gosh, it's beautiful. It's one of the best, like the whole conversation that you're pulling us through is one of the best examples that I have heard about how, thoughts become your reality. And you are taking us through all of it to really bring this to life. And it's incredible. And one of the follow-up things that's coming to mind for me is there's a lot of change happening for people right now. There's change that's happening in our environment that's changing how we want to show up in the future and the life we want for ourselves. And I'm in a similar space. I've got 2 businesses. I love them. My family, we move regularly. We go on lots of adventures. There's a lot of change. But in all of this, I'm realizing, okay, there's a new level that I am ready to step into. And as I think about stepping into this next level, I know that some people who are listening are in this same space, like new level. There are a lot of different ways I could go with this. I could go this route. I could go that route. And I get a little bit tripped up sometimes. I'm like, okay, but whichever way I'm going to go, to what you said, I have to step into that. I have to shift 90% of my being into that space. So I want to be committed, right? To the path I choose. So for those people who are in this space in between, like I'm new leveling, there's a new reality coming and I haven't chose it yet.
Yeah.
How do we choose? How do we walk in that space with our thoughts in between the space where we are and the choice of the new reality?
So first I would say, stop trying to choose. And that's important because there's always choices. There are always multiple doors.
Right on time.
But let's go back to the feeling. If the feeling is what we're after and we get clear on what we want, and we get clear, then we sit with that, the feeling of what having that feels like becomes clear. The more we're in the feeling, the right door shows up. So yeah, technically we choose, but if you stay in that feeling, it's going to choose for you. It's going to come up like, oh, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to walk through this. Because if that's the feeling you're in, the opposite of that can't even show up for you. It's like when the magnets are turned the same way and they like push each other apart, that's what will happen. And so very often I think we concern ourselves with, what should I choose? Which way should I go? This is what I want. What should I do? I think that if we concern ourselves with, this is what I desire, let me get in the state of having it, of being it fully, then our way becomes very apparent. We'll get the intuitive nudge. And all of a sudden, one of the directions will just not look as sexy. And it's like, you know what? That doesn't even feel good anymore. And now we have this one. And so the way becomes made for us. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, completely. And as soon as you said it, I'm like, oh yeah, done. That answers the question. So I hope for someone who's listening and wondering, like, okay, which way should I go? Don't choose. Feel it.
Yeah. But you know what? It's so hard, I think, in the society we're in. I mean, like you said, things are changing for so many people. So I think we're shifting a little bit, but I feel like the pandemic has been really amazing. I think the pandemic has ushered a shift anyway, a shift that was already there and coming for a lot of us, but it's almost like it was something within that really opened our eyes. Like, this no longer can be a dream for you. This now has to be your thing. I don't know what it was about it, but that's how it feels to me, right? Yeah. And so feeling into that, what I realize is that even though a lot of people are wanting to go back to normal, so people are still focusing on the hustle, focusing on the grind, I think society is teaching us that not being is not working. And so that means that we instantly want to find decisions or find reasons and find ways, because if we don't, we're not busy. If we don't, we're not working. If we don't, we're not falling into what society and entrepreneur circles say we should be doing. And it's almost annoying to me when people say, well, you can't like feel your way. It has to be action. And I'm like, well, who told you that wasn't an action? Like, how do we determine that that's not an action? Because I'm absolutely doing something. Every time a thought come in that shouldn't be there and you shift it, that's an action. May not be the action you're thinking of, but I am physically taking action every time because I'm shifting it immediately. And it's exhausting too. It's like, where's on you? It's exhausting. No one talks about that. Like, no, this is exhausting. All right. It is action. So I think it's fighting, not even fighting against, but allowing what society tells you should be doing as far as work, to like allow it in and say, that's great for you, but you know what? I'm being led to discover my truth in a different way. Because yes, the work that we're doing internally with the subconscious, that is work. But when you really get that ingrained in, the actual physical labor you need to do will come to you. You will know what to do. But when you go to force it, you're going to start opening doors that may not be the door that leads to the path that you're desiring. So then all of a sudden you're going down here and you're wondering, why is this so hard? Because that was never the door you were supposed to be taking. You did not stay focused on the goal at hand. You were focused on, well, what do I need to do? The end result is the number one thing for you to focus on. Like, what is this thing?
Stephanie, this is good. Oh my goodness. I am so grateful for this beautiful conversation. I want to dive into the tea next, because as we have talked, and even that choice, right? How did you get to the feeling of knowing that, oh, it's time for me to open up a totally different business?
That makes no sense when people look at it. Like, yeah, I admit it. I'm like, yeah, it makes no sense. I get it. It works, but it makes no sense. So here's the funny thing that shocks people. I actually did not like tea most of my life, even for me to be a Southern girl. Like, because when I think of tea, I did not think of like all the possibilities of tea. As a Southern girl, when you say you want tea, you want like sweet tea, which now I know to be black tea with sugar. And I just didn't like it. It's not for me. I don't like it. I don't know. If I was to drink it, by the time I get through, it's not tea anymore. I didn't put lemon. I sliced some oranges. I'm making tea sangria. Like, this is not tea.
That's the way I like it. Yes.
And I'm like, this is not the tea the child drinking. But I was traveling through Europe and Asia back in, I think it was like 2012. I did a year through Europe and Asia. And my son, who was at the time was like 7, 8, he's always loved tea. He doesn't care. He wants sweet tea, hot tea, any kind of tea. He has always been that kid. So we were in Thailand and Bali, and a lot of times we would go in different places. And don't ask me why I would take this child to the spa with me. He was that young getting spa visits. And so they would offer him tea and he was all for it. And I'm like, water, just bring me water. And he's like, no, mommy, you need to try the tea. I'm like, Kaden, I don't like tea. And, I don't know if you've been there, but sometimes you just do stuff when kids get on your nerves. You keep asking me to do, boy, just give me the tea. Just give it to me. I'm gonna taste it. Just leave me alone. So I tasted it and I was like, what's this? What is this? This is not tea. And turns out it was ginger with a little turmeric and honey and something else. And lemon, and it was so good. It was literally a ginger tea. It was just so good though, but it was nothing that I was thinking of. It's more of a fruit and herb tea. And so it kind of took me down the rabbit hole of teas. And that's how I realized it was over 1,000 different varieties that we know of. It could be a whole lot other varieties. And so when I got back to the United States, started buying teas, but honestly, the teas in most stores, my palate wasn't really, it's not the same. It's just not the same. And so I would import in tea from the UK or from Paris, or when I travel, I grab it and I will bring it back with me. But during the pandemic, we know how shipping was, and it may take you 3-4 months to get something. So I decided, like, well, what if I start my own tea company? It was out of the blue. But let me be clear, I didn't connect it initially. So during the same time during the pandemic, I'm trying to get tea. I'm also doing the research around all these people and how they're paying $16 million for houses and like wealth and all these things. And so I set my intention that, okay, I'm going to need you to give me something that is going to be scalable and sellable, because I really believe in legacy. For the idea that my great grandchildren could live off of the investments I make in my lifetime feels so amazing to me and so freeing. And that's a great desire of mine. And so I started really sitting with this and setting the intention. And I didn't know what the company would be, but I started seeing the end result. And I'm still seeing the end result. But the end result for me was me standing on an expansive property that would go down in my generations. And I'm standing on it, and my son and his wife is there with their children, which was very weird to see because he's 14, but with their children. And that was the scene that I chose. And we knew this was our property. And this had come from whatever the investment was. And that's where I was. Now, all this occurred at the same time. So when the tea idea came to me, it was more so about me. So we got to tie them back together, but it was more so about me. I wanted the tea. But the more research I did into tea, I realized there are very high profit margins in tea. And there are smaller tea companies here, but there are no real tea manufacturers here. And when people think of tea, they think of like the Earl Greys, which is great. We have a creamy Earl Grey. And they think of chai, which is great. We have an India Street vanilla chai, and we have the basics. But I had become acquainted with fun flavors. So like we have a pina colada, which is amazing iced, but it's also amazing with rum, right? We have like a citrus that's great with vodka. And I was like, wait, we can do fun things with tea, and no one's introducing it in this way. And all of a sudden I start thinking, like, what if this could be something viable? It wasn't until after I started it, and we started in October, we had okay sales. The sales were more so because of my audience I already had at that time. And then Bridgerton came out on Christmas Day.
Oh my goodness.
And let me be clear, my PR team had approached all publications before. No one was interested in me, which totally would make you think like, oh, well, maybe this isn't a thing. But it didn't make me think that. Like, I was still focused. I'm like, no, everyone's going to know LaRue 1680. Like, this is going to be amazing. But no one was biting. They had approached all those places. They had approached the Today Show and Wall Street Journal and all these editors, and nobody was interested. So Bridgerton comes out in December. The last week of December, one of the Vogue editors, okay, wait, I'm jumping. When Bridgerton came out, I was an immediate fan. I watched it on Christmas Day. I binge watched it. So as a marketing person, like instantly I was like, oh, it'd be really cute to dedicate one of my packages to like Inspired by Bridgerton. So I did a Bridgerton inspired set with the teas I already had in the store. I just put them into sets and named them after Bridgerton characters. So last week in December, right before New Year's, I guess the Vogue, this is my understanding on this end, the Vogue editor realized how hot the show was and how much they drink tea. And so when she was doing like a Google Trends search, she realized that the tea search has shot through the roof. So then she put in Bridgerton and tea to see what came up. Nobody else came up, just me. So then she dug in and she found my publicist and asked for a statement. And it was literally like a 2-sentence statement. So my publicist reached out and was like, can you give me a statement within the next 2 hours? I'm like, 2 hours? Wait, I got to find something like amazing. Wait, hold on. So give her the statement. By the time it came out the first week in December, which let me be clear, I did not know it was out. They didn't let us know, and it didn't come up when we were searching the name in Google. It wasn't until all of a sudden other publications started showing up. Like, we saw you in Vogue. And so I was like, wait, did that come out? And so then we find the Vogue article, which again, it's literally not even joking. 2 lines. And then it said from CEO Stephanie Sinclair, from European inspired LaRue 1680. That's it.
Oh my gosh.
Within 30 days, we did like $300,000 of freaking tea. The company was ran out my house, my office downstairs, and my garage. By March, I'm in tears, just not what people would expect. But I'm like, oh my God, I can't keep up. What's happening? Because like myself and my son was enough prior to this, but now it's so much. So now we still have a small warehouse. It's 2,500 square feet. It's about 3 minutes from my house. So now we have a warehouse and employees and all those things. But here's the thing about manifesting is that when the things unfold, you will feel like, oh, it would have happened anyway. Because it happens naturally. It doesn't happen in like this big, huge, like I think it was big and huge, but technically, if you tell us, they're like, oh, that's cool. Vogue reached out and then they kicked it off. But why did Vogue, someone who had turned it down before, all of a sudden out of nowhere decide? What made them think to look up Bridgerton Tea? Like all the things begin to align to bring you the things you need. And so like along that path, I realized, wait, this is the thing that's scalable and sellable. So for a minute, I didn't know they were the same thing. It took me a minute to realize it because in the beginning, October, November, December, sales didn't pick off until January. This couldn't have been it because we might have had like a $1,200 month, but the other 2 months was like $300 and $400. So yeah, no, let me keep doing my visions for whatever that scalable and sellable business is. And what happens most often though, is people will have these visions and like the human nature, especially now in the metaverse. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get tickled about it. Now in the state that we live in where everything is instant, we don't know how to manifest because we think it's supposed to come tomorrow. And if we don't see physical 3D proof in a day or 7 days or 30 days, then all of a sudden it doesn't work. But the fact that you said and it doesn't work means you don't even understand manifestation anyway, because you are in a spirit of it's done. So how is it that it doesn't work if it's already done? Or are you lying that you really believe it? Because if you really believe it, it's not it doesn't work. It has worked. You just don't see it yet, but it's here. It's done for you. You get it?
Oh my gosh, Stephanie, I think I get it on a whole new level than I ever have before. I mean, unbelievable, which I know that I'm going to keep digging into this and I'm going to keep, I don't even know how long we've been friends on the Facebook before we actually.
For years, actually, probably.
I know, I'm going to go look actually. Facebook tracks it all for us. But I mean, this is the first conversation we've ever had one-on-one, which I cannot even believe that. And I know that so many people who are listening will be like, I need more of Stephanie in my life. Where do they find you?
Well, of course, my website, stephaniesinclair.com, but my social media platforms, I'm very active on Facebook, Stephanie Sinclair, and Instagram, Stephanie Sinclair. So yeah, very, very active. I'm hopping around here.
Oh my goodness. We're going to link all that up. We're going to link the tea up. So if anyone's looking for that, you got to get some of the Bridgerton tea. And if you haven't
Listen, the tea is amazing. And people think I say it just because it's my tea. I'm like, no. Let me be clear. Let me be clear. So like this coming Friday, well, remember I told you they're going to be following us for the day. So I'm going to be filming videos. And one of the holiday teas that we just released, which is a apple cranberry crumble tea. We have we have a pecan pie, pumpkin pie, cinnamon bun chai, like all these flavors that you're not even thinking of, gingerbread, like all of these I have an eggnog, a Vienna eggnog tea that's coming out. So we're taking the apple cranberry, and we are making a mulled wine with it. We're going to do an alcoholic version and a non-alcoholic version, and have beautiful pieces of apples and chunks of cinnamon and oranges and fresh like all the things in there. It's going to be amazing because I really only carry teas that I love and that I think is fun. And teas are so versatile because when you look at mulled wine, it's basically red wine with mulling spice. When you look up mulling spice, it is cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, all those things. When you look on the bag of apple, I keep calling it cinnamon. I want cinnamon to be in here so bad. Apple cranberry crumble. When you think of like crumbles, it's the cinnamon, it's the nutmeg, it's the cardamom. And when I realized the flavors were similar, I was like, ew, let's make something amazing. So I only sell what's amazing. And I know it's so easy for people like, yeah, because you sell it. I'm like, no, if I didn't love it, I wouldn't sell it. I would close a business down in a minute. Like, goodbye, done.
And, this is the perfect end state and way to bring this to again. If you don't love it, if you're not feeling it,
let it go.
Oh, let it go. Oh my gosh, Stephanie, I don't want to let you go, but I would just listen, take notes all day. So get connected with Stephanie. And thank you so much for being on the Right on Time podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I love you. Hey, it's Amber back again to just debrief on that incredible episode just a bit here. I took pages of notes and I have quotables from Stephanie. And as I was listening to that episode, I got clarity and I hope you did too. We make so many decisions every single day. And sometimes what we need to do is release from making the decision and know that it's right on time. That nudge, that calling, that feeling that you have, keep stepping into that. And as Stephanie shared, 55% might move the needle. But if you want to make that quantum leap, we've got to start to make the place that you want to be going 90% of your inputs. So what's it going to be? What are we stepping into? What are you going to dial up the volume on to start to reset our thought process, to start to reset our beliefs and start to move in the direction you want to be going so we get to your destination faster? I hope that you will reach out to Stephanie and myself on social media, share about this episode if it had an impact on you, review this episode wherever you're listening to podcasts. We want to hear from you. We want to connect with you because we are so absolutely in this together. We'll link up all of Stephanie's business ventures. Multiple incredible things happening. We didn't even talk about the new house she bought in Italy and the remodel she is doing on that. There is so much more. So you definitely want to connect with Stephanie, and I'd love to hear from you as well. Thank you so much for listening to the Right on Time podcast. You are in the right place. You are right on time. Let's keep on keeping on.